Hey out there, still on the topic, unraveling paternity fraud through DNA testing. Still your favorite host, Uchenna Amadi, and I'm with the amazing Dr. Owoeye, the consultant hematologist of SYNLAB Nigeria, Miss Patsy Mokungah, the legal and compliance manager of SYNLAB Nigeria, and Mrs. Olaogun, the key account manager of SYNLAB Nigeria. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow SYNLAB Nigeria on YouTube and on Spotify. In the previous episodes, we've talked about paternity fraud. We went on to look at the science behind DNA testing. We also went to the legal part, talked about legal and ethical considerations, and now we're going to be talking about SYNLAB's biological relationship testing. So I'm going to be starting with Dr. Owoeye. Can you explain to our listeners what biological relationship testing is and why it is necessary?
Biological testing, relationship testing, is actually a form of DNA testing that helps us to ascertain parental biological relationship as well as non-parental biological relationship.
Wow, simply put,
so
parental and non-parental.
Which cannot be
I was coming to you. Can you help us?
On that level, we have what we call paternity, we have maternity, we have a sibling check. We have a sibling check.
Wow.
That tells you like whether you are half or full sibling.
Yes.
So we also have a grandparenting. We have a twin test. That's for parents that are so curious about knowing whether these ones are identical or fraternal. So or for medical reasons.
Yes.
So for grandparenting, it's when, especially when the maybe the father is not alive, is already is diseased. So maybe grandparenting, maybe the father, the mother, are trying to get the Y chromosome out of it. So the grandparenting can come in that. And also for a father that is in abroad and the grandparents are here and want to establish a relationship, the child wants to move to meet the father abroad. And what do? We can suggest a grandparenting. That's only because there are so many cases that may arise from there. He can come in to tell you that, okay, they are the biological parents of the man in abroad, but at the end of the day, it may not. So now we are giving out more delicate cases. So, but in a nutshell, grandparenting is when the man is deceased, is not around, and we need to establish a relationship which the child shared with the family. Then also the siblings, as I mentioned earlier, it could be half sibling or it could be full sibling. And why do we do this? For inheritance sake. For immigration.
Nigerians and inheritance.
I've seen an inheritance case where it was grandparenting that they had to do because the grandparents, one of the children had a child out of wedlock who now stayed at home with the grandparents and became the grandfather's favorite grandchild. Such that when the grandfather died, and it was a man with a very large estate, he left so much to that particular grandchild. Not that his children were not there. They were alive. He skipped his children, skipped other grandchildren, then gave majority of his
percentage to
this child. And
the
remember that
she
is an illegitimate grandchild. Like she was born at home. So they
will just gang up.
Parents, the children, the grandchildren, everybody rose up against this one girl. So they had to prove that she was actually his biological grandchild.
So we also have like I was saying, we also have immigration for immigration purpose. For you want to get for a visa or for a citizenship application. So that's the reason why we do. And for paternity and maternity, to establish that you are actually the biological parents to that particular child. So that's the essence why we carry out our
Thank you very much. Dr. Owoeye, so why did SYNLAB Nigeria expand the scope of its paternity testing to address these other relationships?
From all what we've said, it's actually obvious. It's obviously to expand, the scope and move out of, the area of paternity testing. I'm not sure what most of the labs out there in the country do, but I'm not sure there's any lab that has that spectrum, for biological relationship, testing. And basically it's just to expand that scope. And I mean, she had said a whole lot of things about it, and it helps, of course, with sibling. And of course, I'm going to use this particular period to actually address one of the questions she said earlier on about
You must be fair.
99.5% thing.
Oh yeah, I was going to say those half siblings. Are they the ones that fall within the 70%?
No, so what I'm saying is, what I actually wanted
they
to
may not
say.
up to
imagine.
no, for the 99.9% that we talked about, it's actually for maternity and paternity. But so for
let's
when
thank
we
God
go to
because I was
sibling
about to
check,
fight.
So that was what I was going to.
so when we talk
bring
about
out
sibling
now.
check, it
So
may not up
sibling
to that, but
check,
statistical
exactly.
calculations
So
comes
statistical
in.
calculation.
So they're the
not
ones
be-
that fall in between.
Yeah,
between
siblings,
60,
half
70.
siblings.
Patsy, we're clear now,
kinship.
right?
Do you understand?
We'll meet after.
Okay. Okay, so
interesting.
speaking of what you just mentioned, like all these other
Relationships.
relationships, what is the prevalence of cases that require testing for others? Like,
Based on the context, we have a genetic information that has to do with it. Aside the paternity that it's so common. So let's say maternity, which I looked at it, that is not a rare request. When it comes in is when we require for surrogacy case
okay,
or for egg donation
oh,
or for custody claim.
Custody claim.
So that's when it could. But in that case, when we do such tests, it's just between 1 to 5. For my data, we have like 1 to 5% of it for a test, done on that DNA test.
and they come from the court.
They come from it could be from the hospital. There's some hospitals designed for like IVF centers, people that are assisted in helping women to carry other women's pregnancy. So that's for maternity.
Okay, so that's like to determine, because I know that we've discussed this, to determine whether the child in itself was the child of the surrogate or the child of
the child that they
we need to
born
just
there.
rule it out.
Okay.
To rule it out. So it's not a test that is so
I wish that maternity testing will be as prevalent as paternity testing because of how much fraud we have identified in our system, like the issue of child swapping, right? And there's this new thing that has come up right now that is I think it's prevalent in the Southeast, where women are taking for this false pregnancy thing, and
they
either deceive them that they have given them a child, or some women do it knowingly, where I think they give them drugs to inflate,
to induce them
to make them look like they are pregnant, and then they give you a child after. And some women don't even know. Some women are actually like psychologically, what's the word? Psychologically trained to believe that they had that child. That they gave birth. Because from what I like, the information I delved into, they would usually sedate them when they will tell them that you can only give birth in the place where they gave you the pregnancy. So when you go, they will sedate them. By the time they come out of it, they will give them a baby. So some of the women genuinely think,
do you know what they
child.
do? Some of them, they believe that they will tell you that do not visit any other hospital. You have to come to, because when you are due, they will tell you, they will monitor you, no matter where you are. You have to come in to come and have the baby delivered, and because you'll be your breast will come up as if you are lactating.
Actually, the reason why
they be given hormonal drugs to induce all that.
I was going to say that. So the reason why they actually feel they are pregnant is they actually induce that pregnancy state, that. And you were actually right in pointing that out. So maternity testing will actually help with.
Yes, I think it should come together. So if you are contesting the parenthood of the child, it shouldn't just be the father, because what if the mother did not know her child had been swapped?
It's not just paternity, because you can actually do for 2 people duo. That's alleged father and child. For 3 people, father, mother, child.
I know that it's possible. I want people to know that it's not just
our table in
come with both requests.
What they do is they will tell you, the mother was pregnant. They can see her when she was carrying the pregnancy. So there's no point testing her own sample.
So
it's common in Nigeria. I think it's our mentality. So they will just say it's the father and the child. But on some of the results, they'll put it there, is inconclusive. By the time one marker is missing from the SCR markers, they will tell you the mother will have to come in for the test to be conclusive. So at that time, the woman will have to come in to have a complete
that's what we should do. Then I was actually going to add to this that there are certain types of people who are called chimeras. Now that's where I mean, there was a particular case of a woman who actually was pregnant, and I think there was a case, for paternity testing, and they actually found out that, because I need to also point out before I go on that you can actually do paternity testing while a woman is pregnant. So you can actually do it for all ages. It's not only for adults only. So you can actually do it when the woman is prenatally.
Yeah.
So I think it was a prenatal.
That's an invasive procedure.
Yes. Yeah. So she's woman was pregnant, and I didn't remember exactly what led to the test. And then the test result came out. The father of the unborn child is actually the father of the unborn child, but the mother,
she's not the mother of the child. Chimerism.
Chimerism. So usually,
I think she had fused with her twin.
Yeah, she had a twin, and then the tissue of the twin fused with her ovaries, with her gonads. So she's practically like actually giving birth to her sister's children.
Biology is so
interesting. I swear.
Yeah, so it's very, very important for us to actually drove back.
Because that's when the result comes out and the woman is telling you that she's so sure of her carrying this pregnancy. So then this procedure test can come on board.
So speaking of this paternity fraud, I think is a deep
test. That's why
in that case, maternity
something that you don't even expect
would actually come into the picture. Because in that case, you'd have to do maternity testing.
But how can families heal and move forward from, after discovering that they've been victims of maternity or paternity fraud? How?
Forgiveness.
No, so is human.
How do you want to
forgive is divine?
No, how do you want to
we need to also consider that in a relationship, for us to forge ahead, there should be an open communication. To avoid all these paternity fraud.
I don't get that.
No, how do you for paternity to avoid all these issues?
What are you saying?
When you are in a relationship and there's no transparency, there's no open communication.
I want to know what we are communicating. What's the open communication? Should we have a paternity test? Or I'm carrying a child that's not yours.
Enough for your violence.
What would I say?
We have okay, I'm into a relationship. I don't know about his past. His past can actually tell me what his infertility looks like. He may have been married to another woman out there and no child. Now I am coming into the picture. At the end of the day, you are telling me I cannot also be pregnant for you. Now, if you had told me, okay, these are the steps involved that he has been put in place, he was able to go through to claim that. But some men will not come out to tell you this. So when there's no open communication in a relationship, that will help the woman in the house to forge ahead, to know the decision to make.
Okay, so I think you're speaking. I think she's speaking to the preventive measures.
But yes,
open communication to prevent being in that situation. So now I want to ask now, honestly, how can families move on? Because this is a deep issue.
I don't know. It's this kind of question is a blanket question, but I feel like this question is something that can only be truly answered on a case-by-case basis. Do you understand what's happening in that particular family? What led to the paternity fraud? Yes. Do you understand?
So you need to get to the root cause.
And what is the situation around? Because as much as you might see a wrong and you think it's so easy to judge something as being so wrong. But when it comes to humanity, one thing I'm learning about humans is that the case is less black and white and more gray areas. Do you understand? Yeah. So a person could have found themselves in such a situation, but when you check it, around it, there may not have been malicious intent. It could have just been a mistake, maybe what we call mistakes, a slip up at one point. It could be that's the issue where a woman is trying to cover up for her husband's infertility, and I really feel like this is something that should come up a lot. We should learn to discuss male infertility. It should come up to the point whereby men are comfortable enough to go get themselves tested. A lot of men ignore it. Once you hear that a couple, we are so trained by our system that if you hear a couple is not having children, your mind automatically goes to the woman.
Yeah.
But so we need to address that. And like I said, these things are case by case basis. I have heard of situations where armed robbers attacked a family, raped the wife, she got pregnant. Do you understand? And or maybe there have been times where this pregnancy and rape could have occurred in the husband's absence. as a married woman, if you get raped, do you really want to tell your husband you were raped? Then you find out you are pregnant. Who is the father of the child? The rapist or your husband? And then you just go on to have the child and decide that, you know what, it's never going to be found out because it was in 1980 in Nigeria and you never thought you people would relocate. But now you are relocating and your husband has tested and it's not his child.
No, there's certain things I actually want to bring out of this. Now, it's basically like we are a little bit being academic about it. I know couples who do abortions because they don't want babies. Now, how else with a married woman who probably got raped? More often than not, most people would go get rid of pregnancy. Most of the times they won't decide to have the babies. That's what I'm very sure of. Mm-hmm. That's what people do. That is the reality on ground. That's what a lot of them. But for me, I think talking about healing, it depends on the uniqueness of each situation and then the time. Now, it's so easy for someone to heal and move on if you detected maybe within 5 years of marriage or being involved with someone that there was a case of paternity fraud. It's a lot easier for you to be able to move on compared with someone who had actually spent 25 years or 30 years living a lie. You understand? So let's bring that into perspective. It's a lot easier, and then I think we are just hammering on the guys. I'm not, but the truth of the matter is, a study was done by Durex. I didn't mention that some years back, that puts case of paternity fraud in firstborns at about 40-something%.
Wow.
That's a lot.
The first children.
First bonds, because there's a whole lot of factors, and I'd said some of them. People double dating or something, and
Bachelor's Eve nights, Princess nights.
Yeah, all those things are there. So I think we should be a little bit more. For me, the most important thing is, one, you need to understand the peculiarity of the situation.
Yeah, like
then time also is there, because for me, for somebody who is in his 60s, where does this start from? Now, I think we need to underline the effects of this on the mental health, because the first thing is identity crisis, then you have depression, then you have suicide, and then you have tendency to commit murder. So these are things that you are dealing with.
The mother part, though.
Because you look at it, if you have actually stayed in such kind of for like 30 years, how do you really recover that? Yes. And you find out that all the children you actually thought were yours, none of them were yours. How do you recover from that?
I asked you a question, and this is something that, because that's come up a lot, I've seen it on social media, and this is both from the angle of the father and from the angle of the child involved. In cases like this, where be it you found out at 5 years, you found out at 30 years, what happens when you find out that a child that you thought was yours is no longer yours? As a man, should you walk out considering the effect you have on that child? Should you walk out, or do you have some sort of social or emotional or moral obligation towards that child?
I have seen men that actually stayed back. I said, I don't know what you're saying. This is my child. I've bonded with this child. Yes. I have invested, not that way though. Yes. I've invested in this child. So I'm going to keep being this child's daddy.
Now, actually depends a lot on the guys involved.
That's what I said earlier.
Sometimes
it depends on the man himself, individual. So you can come up to say, okay, I decided to stay back with the child because where do I start from? Psychologically, it can be going through that trauma. Of course. But you have to just manage it.
No.
So he will manage it. For the way we live, 60, 70 years of age.
For the older guys, maybe in their 60s and their 70s, a lot of times you find, if the man had been good, children that would say, Mother, we don't know what you're talking about. Yes. This is our father.
The father too has to claim them back.
It's a two-way street.
It's a little bit easier on the man, like that, because in that case, you find those children coming and forming like a support system, for the man, because they feel he had been wronged, he had been aggrieved.
But again, in such situation, whether you like it or not, in the children, it may create curiosity, and that curiosity can betray the emotions of the parents. What I mean is, because a child might be like, I don't really care. You're my dad. But then you've discovered that you are biologically linked to somebody else. You want to find out who that somebody else is.
Sure.
And
most times
a lot of human beings will want to go and trace that person. And you know that in that tracing that person, you can hurt the other person who has been your father the entire time. Because if you see somebody as your child, you want to be enough for that child as a parent. The minute that child is going to seek out, oh, who is my original father? It may feel like, oh, so I'm not enough for you. You need to accept. You know, it's creating so many issues.
We're humans, actually.
So many issues. So it has to be done on a case by case.
Case by case.
I agree. And this has actually been quite illuminating. This is a very sensitive topic. And that, dear listeners, brings us to the end of another exciting journey on SYNLAB podcast. We hope today has been a source of valuable information. If you found this topic helpful, share it with friends and family. Before we go, a heartfelt thank you to the amazing Ms. Patsy Mokungah, Legal and Compliance Manager of SYNLAB Nigeria, Dr. Olaniyi Owoeye, Consultant Haematology of SYNLAB Nigeria, and Mrs. Oluyemi Olaogun, Key Account Manager of SYNLAB Nigeria. In keeping with our tradition, I'd like you all to please sign our legacy board. We are using this to say thank you for gracing us with your presence in the podcast powered by SYNLAB Nigeria. And to you out there, to book a DNA test to avoid being asked, who's your daddy? Visit any branch of SYNLAB Nigeria and request SYNLAB's biological relationship testing. You can also book the test on SYNLAB's website. Thank you for joining us, and remember to seek truth, embrace clarity, and nurture trust. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow SYNLAB Nigeria on YouTube and on Spotify. You can also follow SYNLAB Nigeria on all our social media platforms. My name is Uchenna Amadi, and I'm signing out.